begin today with teaching through the Bible, talking about the incident with the golden calf. Now, out of anything that we look at after the Ten Commandments in Exodus, this is going to be the part that people know the best, probably because this is actually narrative. It's actually kind of a story rather than a list of rules, a list of commands, saying how to make a part of the tabernacle, all that kind of stuff. This is a narrative that's put in there, and this is chapter 32. So in chapter 32, what are they doing? They're waiting on Moses. After receiving this book of the covenant that we talked about previously, and after he went up on the mountain, he'd given them the instructions, he had read it out, and of course with those Ten Commandments, he had actually, not, it wasn't him speaking, it was God speaking to them. So they heard that directly. Then they heard Moses on a lot of the other case laws that are more civil laws, and then he went up on the mountain. And after he went up on the mountain, he was there 40 days and 40 nights. And while he was there, they're just checking the time. They're saying, what's going on? Where'd he go? God's giving them more instruction. He's telling them about all these things that they should be doing as far as building stuff. And we have in, we flip back to chapter 24, 25, that at the end of 24, it says he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And then at the beginning of 25, it says, Yahweh said to Moses, and then continues on with, here's all this stuff about building the tabernacle. Tabernacle, being this tent that was for God's presence. And while he's doing that, he also writes the 10 words, the 10 commandments on these stone tablets for Moses to bring back to the people. Remember, this is part of that covenant. He's holding these things, saying like, this is, essentially this is the covenant, in writing in a way, at a basic level, and it's at least representative of that agreement that they've made. So then we get to chapter 32, and they're saying he's been up there for forever. He hasn't come back down with those stone tablets yet, and he's been up too long. So, let's just move on. That's their mindset. So they go to Aaron. Now Aaron and Hur, those two were supposed to be in charge while Moses was gone, and evidently we see here his assistant Joshua actually went not all the way to where Moses went, but had gone a ways up the mountain as well, and so he wasn't there either. So Aaron and Hur are supposed to be in charge. We don't see really anything about Hur here, but they go to Aaron and they say, well, look, we want to be able to see God and worship that way, which of course we know, because they were just told by God, don't do that, that's a problem. So that's the second thing we see in the 10 words, in these, what's going to be on those stone tablets. Second thing we see on there is, you don't worship other gods. You don't make images of God for worship. And so here though, they decide they want to do that, in fact. So they say, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And so what does Aaron do? He's like, all right, everybody give me like your gold rings and things like that. Basically, the material to make these fake gods. And takes it all, melts it all down, makes a calf out of it. Now, it's interesting he makes one calf, it says. Why that's interesting is the way, at least it's translated, is take off the rings of gold for making this, and it's one thing, but they were saying to him before this, make us gods, in this translation. And I think generally that's how the translations go. They say gods, plural. Now, this could be accurate, it's possible, but actually the word, so basically you have the word for God, which in Hebrew is El, and then the plural is Elohim. So El or Elohim. Now, the difference, the time that you're going to notice something not that way, that it's kind of done differently, is when we see the true God being talked about. So you have El, which, anytime you see El, that's just God. Anytime you see Elohim, it's going to be like here, translated gods, and that's Elohim is here. But when you see the true God, sometimes sometimes there's El. That can happen, especially in names. A lot of the names of characters from the Bible, they have that El in their name, the El. But a lot of the time, most of the time when talking about the true God, like when you see it in English as God, it's actually Elohim. Why it's not translated as plural is because it is talking about the one true God. There's different ideas about why it's like that. I think that's a really interesting case for, and just add that to the list of reasons why we can know that God's a Trinity. He's one God, but three persons, and maybe one way he's communicating that to us is how he is Elohim, even though he's one. He's not multiple gods, but he's got the plural in the Hebrew rather than the one. But that is the basis we need to know for now what we see here, which is, it says Elohim. Is that saying gods? Or is that saying the true God, capital G, God? Right? So that's something where usually the context is pretty clear and you know whether to translate it as the true God or as just gods, like these fake gods. But here, I think maybe the reason that we have one calf is maybe it's not supposed to be translated as make us gods who shall go before us, but maybe make us God who will go before us. Hey, that God, the true God who brought us out of Egypt, make an image of him. So it's not necessarily them worshiping fake gods, but them worshiping the true God in the wrong way. They're saying, yes, we want to worship that guy, because they even mention who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, but we don't want to, do it the way that we're supposed to. We want to worship that guy, but we want to do it our way. So that's pretty instructive for how we need to make sure that we are worshiping God in the right way. And so it seems like, especially with the context of having that one calf, not multiple, not 2, 3, 4, not however many calves, but one calf, maybe Elohim here, which can be gods, in this case means the true God, and they're just worshiping him the wrong way. And that is also bad. That's a violation of the command that says, don't make images of me to worship, right? Don't make images of me, in anything, in any form, on heaven or earth, whatever. Like, he's saying you should not worship him that way, and they're doing it. So I'm not trying to take them off the hook here and say, it's not that bad. Like, they are clearly violating one of these basic laws that God has just spoken to them not too long ago. And so that's where they start. So not a great start to this chapter for them. Then, of course, God knows this. He knows what's going on. He tells Moses, go down. Here's what's happening. You need to go down and address that. But actually first, before Moses goes down, he actually says, he tells him what's happening. He tells Moses what's happening. And he says, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people, which could be a reference to a calf. If you have a young cow that's learning its job in the field in this agricultural time, and is stubborn, and just wants to go forward, and you're trying to turn it. It's got a stiff neck. It's going forward. You turn it at the neck there with the yoke that's on it. And so you're trying to turn it, and its neck it's not budging. It's going straight, stiff-necked. And so kind of calling these people essentially what they're worshiping. And we know it says elsewhere in the Bible, you kind of become what you worship. And so here it's God's almost saying that with how they are kind of becoming like the calf they're worshiping. And then God says, "Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them, in order that I may make a great nation out of you." So he's not going to not follow through with his promise to make Abram a great nation. That was back in Genesis. He will still use Moses. Like, he's not going to kill Moses too, and it would kind of be a reset where Moses would still be alive, and then through his family, which was a descendant of Abraham, then you would have this great nation still come. It would just be on a different timetable than what was previously expected, by Moses and by these people. And he was going to go wipe everyone out. And here we see Moses be a mediator. Moses says, please don't do that. Moses intercedes for the people. And Moses even, at one point in this chapter, he, near the end, when God and Moses are talking again, and God, he's going to bring judgment on these people. But Moses says to God, and this is still chapter 32. This is in verse 32. So 32. Moses says to God, "But now if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of your book that you have written." So he's saying, put the punishment on me rather than on the people. However, God says, it says in the next verse, "But Yahweh said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book." And he does allow them to live. But there, Moses is there as the guy in the middle between the two and interceding on behalf of the Israelites, being essentially like Jesus. Now, of course, he can't be exactly like Jesus. He's not able to take their punishment for them. If he was perfect, a perfect human, maybe he would be allowed to take the punishment of one imperfect human, but he's not able to just take away the sin of all these people. He himself is not perfect. And even if he was, there's all these people. There's not one person. There's tons of people that have sinned. He can't take the punishment for all of them. Only Jesus can do that, because Jesus, while being human, so he can take the punishment for the sin of human, he's also God, so he can take on all that punishment, because he's not a mere human like Moses. So we need someone better than Moses to be the one who can take that sin away from us, who can take that punishment. Moses was not able to do that. That was something he offered up. He was not able to do that, though. So we see his attitude is certainly like that of Jesus, but his ability is not there in order to be able to do that. But so that's an amazing way that we see Moses being a representative of Jesus here in chapter 32 with these evil people. And we even see him being like Jesus in his wrath as well. So even though he's being merciful here, amazingly merciful, in between these two parts where he's talking to God, he does go down the mountain, and when he sees what's going on, he has the same response as God. It says, so he has these two stone tablets that are representative of the covenant that God's made with his people. And so they go down to the camp, and then it says, and this is verse 19, as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot. Just like verse 10, when God says, that my wrath may burn hot against them. So he has the same reaction, which is appropriate because he's the representative of God to the people. And then he throws down the tablets. They break. This is representatively showing how the covenant has been broken. There are a lot of people do end up dying, but not the whole, initially God says, he could just wipe out everyone. And that would be just, that would be fine as far as morality, as far as the justice goes. But he doesn't do that because Moses intercedes. And so many people still do die. It says a few thousand do. The Levites help wipe out a number of these people who are worshiping this in this inappropriate way, which is, they all deserve to die. Not all of them do die, but they all deserve to die. And of course, anyone who does not die, their judgment, might come later. Or if they are followers of God, their judgment, is dealt with by Jesus. That's the amazing thing about Jesus is no matter how much you sinned, you can still turn to him, and he can take on that punishment, unlike Moses. So, of course, Aaron here just being ridiculous, being like Eve from the garden. No, what had happened was, they told me to do this thing, and then I just took some gold and I just threw it over there, and then poof, golden calf out of nowhere. Crazy, right? But of course, that's not what happened. We know what happened, and a terribly unbelievable story. But that's his excuse. Tries to pass the buck. Tries to blame it on someone else. He even says, the people that they are evil. Like that's verse 22. That's their thing. What am I supposed to do? Totally just blaming them instead. Terrible leader in that case. So we have a very big contrast between him as a leader and then Moses as a leader. Him trying to pass on the blame, and Moses, who doesn't actually deserve the blame, saying, hey, just put the blame on me. We, at the very end, we do get this last verse that says, then Yahweh sent a plague on the people because they made the calf, the one that Aaron made. So we have this problem here now where the covenant has been broken. We see that representatively through the tablets, as Moses threw the tablets. And now they get the plagues. They were told, if you follow this covenant, you will not get plagues like the Egyptians. Well, they didn't, and so a plague comes. And that's where we'll wrap up the lesson today with the golden calf and how God and Moses and Aaron all respond to that. Thank you for watching that video. I hope that it helped you learn a little bit more about the Bible today. And if you'd like to continue to learn more about the Bible, then we have plenty of other videos on the channel. And if this has been helpful for you, then you can always let me know by subscribing to the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to help you learn even more about God's Word. Thanks.